we get so focused on just the content itself, like trying to do the how-tos and teaching great information and these sort of things. But often the case when I'm reading B2B content, there's no indication of the values of the organization or the business owner. What I'd like to see injected in the article that would actually make it more engaging is storytelling. I want to hear about, clients you've worked with. I want to hear about your philosophies and what do you stand for. To be honest, a lot of it's generic. A lot of it is, I could take the same piece of content, put it on your blog, on my blog, on Digital Market, I could put it somewhere else, and it's the same thing. What makes it different? Because the content is the core message is the same, right? Here's how to run a Facebook ad campaign. But what makes it different is, the personality you inject into that content piece.
What's up, everybody? You're listening to the Hustle and Flowchart podcast with your boys, Matt Wolf and Joe Fear.
Anfernee, we're live. Finally. How you doing, my friend?
Boom, boom, boom. What's happening, guys?
Man, I felt like this conversation's a long time coming. You've been around our community for a long time. I feel like we just have some kind of conversation going every week in some format, for a while now. So, and you've been so helpful to our community and given so much value, connections too. So thank you. I want to thank you publicly, man.
You're welcome. I appreciate it. I love what you guys are up to since I found out I first heard about you guys on Shramko's podcast. Mm-hmm. And so that was like, okay, any friend of James is a friend of mine. So, and two bearded guys who live in the States, why not?
James is coming back too. I just chatted with him the other day. We're going to do a little simulcast thing,
I think for cool. James, it's going to be round 5.
I think so. Always a good time. So we'll have to go to you and be like, hey, what should we talk about? We can something around affiliate marketing. Yeah, man. So enough about us, I guess, and how let's talk about you. So you're in Australia, correct?
Right now? Correct. Currently in Sydney.
Okay. So that's close to Shramko, so that makes sense.
Yeah, he's probably a boat ride away. He's in Manly, which is about 20 minutes from here.
Okay, gotcha. Yeah. Okay, I got to make my way out there. Yeah. All right, so you're out there. Give us the scoop on. I know you do a ton of content strategy, a lot of some writing as well. You've also been Matt? You were on his podcast.
I was on the Bean Ninja podcast.
Bean Ninja.
Yes, that's right.
So there's an accounting side to everything. So give us the scoop of what brought you here.
Right. So, we go back to 2009. So I know it's a long time for people to remember, but I was working in corporate. I was working for American Express, and then I was working for Hewlett Packard. Project management was the role, and leading teams, right? And we were doing a lot of technology rollouts across. Globalization was a thing, and it started to become outsourcing was becoming huge in a major way around that time. I had the unfortunate reality of essentially firing my entire team of 10 staff and then go and hiring the 10 staff that were going to replace them in India. And then going over to India to train the new people. Because the thing is, the people that you work with, and I'm sure it is with your team, you build relationships with these people. They become your friends, and sure. you want to look after them, and so that was really hard. But I had to make the choice to go over there. It was either that or I was out of the job, right? So learned all about the challenges with outsourcing, and we from that point on, I kind of cut my teeth in learning about content, but not in the way that we think of in terms of writing articles and things like that. It was more around internally for the company. I was managing the intranet at the time, so it was all about how do we put stuff up on here that would be useful for the employees who want to read, right? But what I discovered was, if I started interviewing the team members and the managers and the senior leaders, that was interesting to people because they wanted to know behind the roles. They wanted to know, okay, well, what does this senior leader, what do they care about outside of their job, right? Do they have families? Do they, like to go gambling and drink on the weekend, whatever it is, right? And so that kind of was the genesis of this whole idea of just doing case studies. And I know that's something that we'll talk about more later. But for me, I started to realize, hey, we all have a story, and we all have the story that we put out publicly, and then we have the story that only a small circle of, close mates, family members, trusted people, maybe our lawyers, have that information, I'm really big on that because I think we have a lot of shame and guilt behind those things that happen, outside of work. And sometimes it happens at work too, but typically we we hold it close to ourselves, and sometimes it can really break us down, because we don't know who to talk to beyond our wives and partners and whatever else. Anyway, so I got into, around that same time, I started a personal blog, because I was having all these feelings and emotions around just what was happening at work, what was happening at home, and I started to explore this thing about, okay, what's this blog thing? I saw this come up somewhere, and I thought I'll better try this out. And so I started just writing. I wrote every day for about 5 years on this blog, and it was just a way, what it was? It was therapy. It really was just me going, this is all the stuff that's in my head. I need to get it out. And I don't care if anyone reads it or not, because at that point in time, I didn't understand traffic. I didn't know what the hell that was. And I just wanted a place to express, right? And then I found, yes, people were starting to read it, because then I would get comments. People would start saying, sending me messages and going, I read that thing that you put on your site about that particular topic, and it really resonated with me. And then I started to get this idea about, well, how can I actually turn this into a thing? How do I make money from this? How do I make it a living, right? Which I know a lot of writers will have. And I struggled for years. I didn't know how to do it. I ended up landing a marketing role for one of Australia's largest co-working spaces here a few years ago. And one of the main things they wanted me to do was to write content. All right. So, and it wasn't just me writing the content, but I had to manage the content coming out from all the other office spaces in the 3 different cities that we had at the time. And so I had to learn to become the editor, and also how to, empower the other team members to write content within a really hectic schedule that they had, right? So one of the biggest challenges you have, and if when you run an agency, you learn this too. It's just getting content sometimes pulling teeth out of people, right?
Sure. Yeah.
And so these were skills that really helped me develop what became Simple Creative Marketing, which is the business that I have now. I've run it for 5 years now, and I've been producing content, articles, video, you name it, for different clients. And one of those we interviewed Matt on was Be Ninjas, which is an online bookkeeping service for e-commerce businesses, right? So what we realized was when you're in the accounting field, we're in that industry, it's really, you can't go out and make ridiculous claims. You can't go out there and say, because of we did this business generated $10 million in revenue, and these sort of things. There's actually laws against doing that, and you have to do it in a way that it's authentic, but it's professional, and you can't do certain things that marketers, some other marketers would do.
Dang,
right?
marketers.
Yeah. You know what I'm saying? So yep. I had to learn within that industry, okay, how do we produce content that is engaging and also that converts, right? Because one of the things is, they're hiring me to really come in and improve the lead generation aspect, and also the conversion aspect, right? And one of the key strategies we worked on was, okay, well, being that you're in accounting, you can't be too salesy. You can't be you're sending remarketing ads and buy my stuff and all these things. It has to be driven through stories, right? And it's got to be content that ranks in SEO, and it's got to be informative, and it's got to be useful, right? Mm-hmm. And what I've learned is there are sort of 5 key challenges that comes with content strategy. One, they don't have a strategy, right? Yep. Usually someone said, I listened to these guys, Matt and Joe, on a podcast, and they said, content is king. And then they go and try and produce a bucket load of content, and it doesn't produce the results they want. Mm. And one of the things I look at is, look at the quality of content, and how do you stand out with your messaging? Because if I'll use the Be Ninjas as an example, the thing that really stood out for that particular company was the story of the entrepreneur, right? It was, launched in 7 days, got their first 3 clients, and then within 9 months, they went to 6 figures, right? Wow. And that story was a story that the media wanted. That's the story that, other podcasts like Mixergy and these guys, they love those type of stories. And so you have to understand what's the narrative that the market wants to hear. And who's, I listened to your recent therapy sessions episode, and
you're on it, man.
Yeah, man.
One came out today, the day we were recording this.
Yeah, I was on it this morning getting my coffee, and it's this is it. You got to know your audience. You really need to know who you're talking to, and who are the competitors in your niche or in your industry that are really standing out in that market, right? And what are they doing, and what are the gaps, yep. Right? And how do we close that? So that's how I got into the whole. I realized, for a while, SEM started off as a blog writing service actually, and we wrote tons of articles, and then within 6 months, the clients that came back to me and said, hey, Anf, loving the articles, they're sitting on our sites, but they're not really doing much, right? And I said, well, how are you guys promoting the content? Like, what are you doing with the content? Oh yeah, we put it on Facebook. Right? Like, we put it in buffer and then we send it out. And I'm like, how many times do you do that? Once. Okay. Right. And so this is the problem. Like, you don't have a strategy to move people from reading the content, right? The content can be amazing, but if no one sees it, it's never going to get you the results you're looking for. And I'm sure you guys would understand this. There's a big myth out there that you can really accurately measure the ROI of content. And Gary Vee likes to say, it's like measuring the ROI of your mother. Like,
no, it's true, because we've actually done this in the past. You probably heard it from previous episodes, but when we ran a content marketing agency, we wanted to make sure we can derive some result from the work that we put in, so we can show our worth, and so we want to get fired after they get enough content, quote unquote. Like, so it was, we tried to attribute to leads and did fairly well, but still got fired because the new marketing manager came in. I mean, that happens all the time, but I know this. We know the struggle, because for the longest time we're like, how the hell do we quantify our results? Like, we can't just do this to do this. There's no security here.
Yeah, totally. And that's what we learned. We actually took us, like with Being Ninjas, it took us 3 years for us to actually see the return coming back to us.
Wow.
Like, at that point, the content started ranking. So we ranked #1 for e-commerce accounting guide. If you go and Google that, you'll see it. And some other keywords. So we worked with an SEO consultant, got very strategic on where are the opportunities from a keyword perspective. At the same time, 3 years ago, we started doing the podcast, which we just hit 100 episodes a month ago or 2 months ago. Nice. And same deal, like, we were every month looking at the metrics going, is this doing anything? Like, is it moving, the needle? But what we started to see was, we'd go out to events and people would come up to us and go, yeah, we heard you on the podcast. And we go, okay, so there's where the feedback is, right? Yep. They're not going and doing reviews on iTunes. They're not emailing us telling us we listened to your episode. We could see the numbers move, so from the data, all right. But we didn't know, was that helping with converting to sales? And I know James Schramko talks a lot about that, where you can actually there are ways you can measure the ROI of podcasting. Right. I know you guys have a real system behind this, but for a lot of businesses I work with, they just particularly in the let's say boring niches like accounting, they don't really get conceptually how does that all work, and so I had to sit down with them and I started to offer content strategy sessions, like 2-hour workshop. Let's map it all out. Let's look at what your next 90 days looks like, and if you don't, before we even get there, I usually work with them on the business strategy, right, the marketing strategy, and go, okay, well, what's the actual marketing strategy and what does that look like? Now, I don't know if you guys are aware of a book called One Page Strategy or something like that by Alan Dibbs. And so I just use his template now with all my clients. Shout out to Alan. And one page breakdown the different elements you need to understand what your marketing strategy is. And then from there, you can then go out and do your content strategy, which is, okay, over the next 90 days, what are you producing that relates to driving acquisition or driving, for some clients, it's a case of retention. So it's not always acquisition. It's sometimes how do we keep the clients that we have?
Recurring businesses and whatnot.
So that's an area that I work closely now with a handful of businesses on is what's the strategy? And then let's go away and implement the strategy. Now, one of the pieces within that strategy is case studies. All right, it's going to be. I'm like going hard at going. Okay, I'm going to be the guy for case study marketing, and let's make that a thing. Let's make it a category because I just feel people do a poor job of it. Like they kind of make it the last thing on the list. It's like, oh, we should get Google reviews from our clients. We should get some testimonials on our landing pages. We should get some case studies to put on our in our collateral, right? But when they do it, it's kind of half-assed. It's like, okay, what was the problem? What was the solution? What did you like about our service? Right. And that's okay, right? But the kind of case studies we've been doing for Being Ninjas and other clients, what we've seen happen is they're not only great stories to share, but they actually do lead to conversion. Like, so we've had we send them out as part of proposals, because in the accounting world we send proposals to clients, and then we strategically placed case studies at the point of consideration, because they're thinking about whether or not to go ahead and sign a deal and put the money, pay the money. And we're going, well, here's a good case study which actually is representative of the type of business you are, and we can show you that we've actually worked with 3 businesses just like yours, and these were the results that we produced, right? And when someone's considering your product or service, that's the kind of thing that they want to see. It's like, have you worked with a business like ours? What did you do? And is this a repeatable process, right?
So yeah, it's like a positioning in the right part of the offer, right? It's probably a case study that relates to whatever thing you're trying to prove about yourself, right before they have to commit. So it's like, boom, here's a case study. Here, relate to this person or this scenario.
100%. We see the best example I like to use is personal trainers, because when they're putting up photos on Instagram or wherever it is, the before and after, here's Anfernee, he was 50 kilos overweight, and after 3 months, here he is, and he's lost 20 kilos, and he looks pretty good. Like that's a boom. Like, you're sold. If I'm wanting that's you don't even have to convince me, because I can see it visually, right? It's a bit harder with business because we don't see the physical change, but what we can see is a change in the numbers or the data or the traffic, from in your analytics dashboards and things like that. So there are ways that we can do it from a B2B or business perspective. We just got to get more smarter around using it.
Yeah. Well, let's break down some of your strategies here. You started to talk about the 5 things that people are doing wrong with their content strategy, right? So you mentioned the first one was no strategy. Did you say the other 4?
No, I didn't.
Okay, let's dive into that. Let's talk about these 5 mistakes that people are making with their content, and then after that, let's dive into the case study marketing and really sort of deep dive into how people can leverage case studies in their business.
Sure. So the question is, what are the common challenges with content marketing? Is that right?
Right. Yeah, I believe that was
cool. Okay, so first one, definitely no strategy. So there's no plan of attack. It's like, okay, well, what's the relationship between the content that you're producing and the business goals and business objectives? Is it revenue? Is it retention? Is it partnerships? Is it, whatever it is for you, you need to understand what that is. The second one has to do with I like to say showing up at the wrong party. And what I mean by that is you are dressed up. Let's say I'm a fan of Avatar, the animation, if you guys know what that is.
Oh, yeah.
Yep, big fan. And I'm dressed up as Aang, and then I walk into a party which is for Trekkies, right? And the Trekkies look at me and go like, "What the hell, man? like, I think you're in the wrong party." Right? And that's exactly what happens with content. Like you have the intention of putting content out on different channels. So you go, okay, my target audience sitting on LinkedIn, they're sitting on Facebook, Instagram, whatever it may be, right? But all you do is you take that article or the video you've produced and you just share the same thing everywhere in the same format. You don't customize it. You don't tweak it based on the platform you're sending it to. And that's exactly what you're doing. You're showing up with one costume to all the parties, right?
Yep.
And that doesn't work. Okay, because people can see through that. People can see, I'm on Instagram and I'm looking at your video and it's not even, the dimensions aren't even right. So it's even hard for me to read, like this text is cut off, so I don't even know what that says, right? So you really want to understand the nuances of each platform that you want to play in, and or community that you're playing, if you're doing sort of going into different communities, and you'll learn very quickly that each party or each event or each place has its own language, has its own preferred formats, right? And so you need to really customize the content for that. And I know I think you had Hani Mura from Repurpose on the podcast a while back, and he's got this fantastic tool. It's one of my secret weapons, just for taking like a live stream and turning that into like 30 pieces of content.
Repurpose.io.
Yeah, right. But what it does beautifully is it customizes for you, right? It basically takes the content, the video, and it goes, okay, let's make it square, or let's make it long, let's make it whatever, and automatically does that for you, right? So that's something to keep in mind. So that's number 2. Is that 2?
Yep, that was 2.
Yeah. Okay. The third one is a lack of understanding of brand, right? And what I mean by this is we get so focused on just the content itself, like trying to do the how-tos and teaching great information and these sort of things. But often the case when I'm reading B2B content, it actually there's no indication of the values of the organization or the business owner. Right. So if I'm reading an article, what I'd like to see injected in the article that would actually make it more engaging is storytelling. I want to hear about, clients you've worked with. I want to hear about your philosophies and what do you stand for, right? Because a lot of it's, to be honest, a lot of it's generic. A lot of it is, I could take the same piece of content, put it on your blog, on my blog, on Digital Market, I could put it somewhere else, and it's the same thing, right? What makes it different? Right, because the content is the core message is the same, right? Here's how to run a Facebook ad campaign, right? But what makes it different is, the personality you inject into that content piece, right?
Yeah.
And because you guys are doing podcasting, it's brilliant. It works well because you automatically inject your personalities.
Always, almost too much sometimes.
But it works for you because that also qualifies people out. People who don't like, the beards and whatever else, they're going to go, it's not for me, right?
Those damn beard haters out there.
Exactly. For me, the hat haters, man. If you don't like hats, I'm not your guy.
I know. You're always right on the hat game, man.
And so, and that's it. And so, in your content, you want to actually infuse, I was working with this type of client, and it's also a good place to drop, do your name drops where you drop who's the client you've worked with, right? Like, here's someone, an organization, particularly if they have reputation, even if they don't, it doesn't matter. But you can even talk about the stories about, if you've got pets, that you love pets, you've got kids, you love kids or don't love kids, whatever it is, right?
Sure.
Infuse some personality. And so when I talk about brand, it's actually what stays connected to the people or the business that's reading. When they're reading or consuming your content, what sticks with them is, what's your business about? What are the values where we have alignment? Because that's who I really want to play with, right? If the content, if the 5 steps on how to do X is great, that's the minimum of what people are expecting these days, because I can get that from anywhere, right? I Google that, 200 articles that show me the 5 steps.
Well,
right?
And the thing with Google, if you think about it, if you relate it to with no personality, they're just going to index that where they don't even need to click. You don't need to click to the blog anymore. It's just like, boom. All right, here's your recipe, for Facebook ads. Like, you want to be in there, but you kind of don't want to be in there.
Absolutely. And that's the thing I kept on going back to my clients about. And I said, what's your point of difference, or what is, your 3 or 5 values that you care about, and what is the business really about beyond just making money? Because I think I have a belief that most entrepreneurs and business owners have a why that extends beyond just making cash, right? Now, I know there's some that do, but I think for the most part, like, I know you guys have families, and that's who you're really supporting. Like, that's what it's about, right? So brand is a good one. I would really recommend people understand it, read about it. That ties to positioning, which is, there's a great book by April Dunford called Obviously Awesome. And that she's been working in the world of corporates and startups for the last 10 or something years, and been able to really help people understand positioning, because brand and positioning are tied. So one of the key, there was a book by Al Reese, and I can't remember the other guy, that the co-author, which was actually called Positioning, that came out in, I think, in the 80s. And they talk about, what's the difference between a Coca-Cola, which is a number one. Now, if you ask people, or anywhere, you go anywhere around the world, and you ask what is the number one Coca-Cola, like Coke brand, right? Most likely they're going to say Coca-Cola, right? There's a position that sits in their mind, and they talk about this concept of a positioning ladder, right? So in every consumer's mind, there's a ladder, right? And in that ladder, they're ranking 1, 2, 3, 4 to whatever. And there's a maximum of, like, you could probably rank 10 brands, and then beyond that, you just forget everybody else, right? And so when you're looking at your own business and where you sit within your niche or your industry or your vertical, you need to understand, how do you position in your consumer's mind or your buyer's mind? Where do you sit, right? Are you the Tesla of automobiles, or are you the Lexus, or are you the Ferrari, right? Each one of those have different positionings, right? Yeah. They're all cars. At the end of the day, they all do the same thing. They get you from A to B, right? But they have different plays in the market to position, right? And so that's very important, even in your affiliate marketing, right? Because we're going to talk about affiliate marketing, and that's something that you guys are really big on, right? Where do you sit in the realm of affiliate marketers who are marketing one particular product or service, right? And how are you different from all the rest of them, right? And that's where you got to understand, okay, I'm going to focus on this part of that particular product set, whatever it is, that most people aren't really looking at, right? And I will highlight that, because then when people are searching for that thing, they're going to find me, and they're not going to find the rest of the other people, right? And that's positioning.
This is like kind of freaking me out, and it's like no one else knows. But I was on a call the other day with someone from Michael Gerber's team, and he was talking about this exact book, this exact same concept, and this whole thing I was talking to you about right before starting this conversation was exactly this, and how powerful this is. I mean, we're talking in the context of content, but in general, business. And I don't want to open up a wormhole because we got a lot to cover. But I just wanted to say this is kind of like my mind's like, wow, okay. It's supposed to be important.
Yeah.
So doing up a lot.
So branding and positioning was the third thing,
Great.
right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And then
All right,
number
so
4.
2 more of these. Let's jam maybe through this so we can get enough time for case studies too.
Yeah, cool. And then so then I'm looking at those. The fourth one is tone of voice, and that this is related to branding as well. But I also mentioned that in terms of your personality. But tone of voice is important. Most small businesses that I've worked with, they don't really have. They usually have a brand style guide, which is the visual element. How does your website look? What are your colors? What are your logos? These sort of things. What they're missing is, what is the brand voice? Okay, and is it professional and funny? Is it serious? Like you've got. If you look at who does this really well, comedians do it really well. If you look at different comics, one comic will be really dry humor, and they'll get on the stage and they're just like straight faced, and but they get a ton of laughs. And then the other side, you got the the outlandish comic who's out there saying really ridiculous things and pushing people's buttons, and that works for them, right? But they differentiate based on their tone of voice, right? And that's something that you can apply to all your content. Is Bean Ninjas is a good example. We're accountants, right? But we're accountants that talk about surfing, that talk about going to a pub and having beers with each other, and networking in different ways. And we've introduced our company mascot, which is Wayne. He's the director. He's got a new puppy, and so the puppy's become the mascot, and the puppy's appearing up in our email onboarding sequences and things like this now.
So you guys are accountants that have fun.
Yes,
that's cool dudes. Yeah,
that's it. And that's what it is. And people show up and go, yes, I know you guys. You guys are fun, and that's by design, right?
Yeah.
So brand
like
voice, and what that is. Yeah.
Cool.
And then we've got one more. You ready?
Let's hear it.
Matt, what do you think it is?
Yeah. What do you think it is? No, let's not go there. So I will go. The last one is actually a system. Okay. So what is your content system or your content engine? So how do you tie all this together? We talked about repurposed. That can be your system. But what is the system from the buyer's journey, interest into consideration, into purchase, into post-purchase, or what we call turning into an ambassador, all right? What does that look like, and how does content fit into each piece of that journey, right? And do you have content that fits in each piece of that journey? Okay, and so we talked about case studies earlier, and case studies fit within one piece of that journey, right? But I've actually worked out a way to actually utilize case studies across the entire journey, because they can be valuable, and we can. So that's the 5. Do you want to recap those, Joe or Matt?
We got strategy is the first one. It seemed like, right? Showing up to the wrong party basically is number 2, because we're taking our notes over here. Lack of brand and values, number 3. Number 4, tone or brand voice. I think that's a big, powerful one. And then the system is the 5th. And I like that you did this, because now we could talk about case studies and the fact that you can use them in different ways along this journey, which is, I think, probably one of the most important things that business owners don't realize is, you could scatter shot this stuff everywhere, but unless you connect on a cohesive path, give them off ramps or ways that they can go down a different journey. Now with case studies and affiliate marketing or any kind of marketing, you can apply these things to that specific scenario. So case study, how do we get started? Or I guess, why case studies over like testimonials? Because people talk about testimonials, I would say, way more than case studies.
Yeah.
The biggest challenge I have with testimonials is testimonials can be faked, because it's usually text, right? It's text on a screen, text on a page, right? So, and that's been a challenge for Yelp. It's been a challenge for Google from day one. It's like, how do we know that the testimonial hasn't been fabricated, right? When you do a case study, it typically takes a lot more work, right? Because you actually have to have, I advocate having video of the interview that you're having with the client, because then you can actually utilize the video. And I always, look at if I share the format, it will make this makes more sense. But with testimonials, now there's a place for testimonials. I'm not saying don't do testimonials at all. I actually think, you can't leave a case study in a Google review. You can't leave a case study, on a podcast review, right? Like it's got to be
good point. Yeah,
right. A paragraph or a few sentences, right? So you can use them in different places on your landing pages. You can have it as a testimonial with someone's face or a company logo. That's fine, right? Where it becomes more compelling is if someone is in that consideration phase. If they are reading a testimonial that says, I hired I worked with Matt and Joe, and they were great, right? And usually a lot of the worst place to see this is on LinkedIn profiles, because you go and look at the recommendations and it's all generic, like boring stuff. Like you're reading it and going, he was such an asset to the organization and he'd be an asset to yours, right? Like what the hell?
I would never say that. Yeah.
Right.
I think a lot of these platforms even have like pre-filled things that can kind of help you out. I'm like, no, that's like the word. Here's an example of what you can write.
Yeah.
Right. And so you want to move away from that. If you're doing it, don't blame you, because it's kind of the industry. Everyone does that.
Yeah.
But you can definitely stand out by having solid case studies. Now, case studies are more in depth. So it's actually, let's go through, let's walk through the format. If I share the format with you, then you go,
perfect.
Okay, so we start off with the headline has to be like copywriting 101 or advertising 101. The headline has to pop. And what I mean by that is it's got to have a clear metric, right? I've seen case studies that start off with satisfied customer. Like, really? like
just
what?
Satisfied, huh?
Yeah, or super happy, I was super happy with Anfrenee's service. Like, what? No, you want it to be, really strong. And I'm going to share one that I did recently for Bean Ninjas, which is a company called Bento. Their client is a company called Bento, which is a SaaS business for e-commerce. And the headline literally reads, reducing Bento's bookkeeping time to 5 minutes per month.
It's pretty good.
Right? Okay. And so, and the target audience obviously are business owners who don't have time to do their books, because they don't want to do it. They don't want to read. They're not accountants, so they don't want to do that stuff. Right. And so you start with the headline, make that pop. And then we go into, okay, well, let's profile the client. All right. So who's this interview or this case study about? Right. Any ideas as to why we wanted to profile the client first?
It feels like that's your context, right? Like that would be like laying or it's a relatability to the reader. Yeah, it's a before. That's what it is, before and after.
Ding, right? So with your case studies, you want to, before we even start this process, when I sit with my clients, we start with a strategy and we go, okay, well, who's your target audience? What are the potential buyers or the avatars, right? And then who are you going after? Right now. Okay. So if you're going after e-commerce businesses, for example, then we would go, okay, well, let's do case studies on e-commerce businesses first before we do, if you do other businesses, that's fine, but let's pick and be very clear. That's who you're going after. So we're going to do case studies and put that to the market so they know that you serve that type of client, right? And so that's why we chose to work with this particular example. Was we sat down, we profiled the company, so we give a bit of a blurb about Bento and the business and what it does, right? And a bit about the entrepreneur as well. So the entrepreneur creates relatability, it creates personalization. So we can go, okay, I can relate to this guy. He's traveling and living in Japan. He's he's I can't remember if he's married or not, but there's human elements to that, right? And then we move from, okay, what's the company profile, to we move to the challenge, all right? So this is number 3 in the format. Okay, the challenge is, and in the interview, I'm uncovering with the subject. I'm asking questions like, okay, well, what were you? What service were you using, or what product were you using before you decided to use this particular product or service, right? Or it could be product or products or service, like they might be, and also what were you using, but also what were you evaluating? Because when people go through a buyer cycle, they're looking at options. Do I go with lead funnels? Do I look at click funnels? Do I look at, what are different things, right?
So you're kind of calling it out so they know that you understand them. You're not like, you're calling out the elephant in the room. You're not the only solution out there.
Yes, absolutely. And Tim Solo from Ahrefs does this really well, right? Because he gets on a podcast and he goes, "Yes, we exist, but so does SEMrush, so does all these other ones." He just calls it out straight away, right? And so this is what you want to do, because you want to say, we understand that the competitors are there. We know they're there, right? And we're not going to pretend like we're the only provider out there, right? Because that's, in a way, you're assuming that the customer or the client is dumb, which is
Right.
you don't want that to come across, right? It's no, we respect that you're evaluating us amongst many, okay? And so we asked, when I asked Jesse, okay, what were you evaluating? Who were you looking at? He told me, okay, we incorporate that in the mix, right? In the story, okay? And then we also asked, well, what were the pain points? And he said, oh, I was working with an outsourced bookkeeping company in India before you guys. They were terrible. They did the okay job, but the problem was when it was tax time, I had to go back and re-look over the last 12 months of my books, and that took me literally hours sitting there trying to fix their work because they were screwing up, right? And I went, that's gold. Okay, like who else reading this has outsourced to someone in India or in the Philippines and they're struggling? All right, so they can relate straight away. So you've got a challenge, and then you go, okay. Then I went, okay, well, how much time are you spending? Because this is where the reverse engineering is important. Because when you understand who your avatars are, you also understand what their pain points are, right? So when you're doing the interview with the client, you want to elicit those pain points and actually dig into those specific pain points. How much time are you wasting on this thing? How much money have you invested in this thing? How much resources have you put into it, right? How much so you're pulling these different elements out of the client, all right? And they go,
They're like emotional triggers. You're trying to get the the real meat out of that stuff. Like, give me the
absolutely, right? Yeah, and that's it. And he comes out and he gives me all these things, and he goes, "And to be honest, man, I just hate Xero. I don't want to be in there. I don't want to even look at the damn thing. I just want to be selling my product, right? Because he's the founder, and that's his role, right?" And I'm going, boom, tagline. That's it, right? And you'll see that's what it is. Okay, so we move from so number 3 is a challenge. Then we move into the solution. Okay, and the solution here is your prospect. I mean, your process. So as the business, what is the process that you take your clients through to get the result? All right. So and I've been asked on another podcast, well, how much of the secret sauce do we give out here, Anf? Like, do we give it all? Do we, because some companies want to hide their IP. They don't want everyone to steal their stuff, right? And I'm going, is it in your interest to tell more or to tell less? Because remember, you're trying to convert a sale here, right? And if you're hiding information from the prospect, right, then how do you think they feel? Because they're going to go, I want someone I can trust. So, and trust comes from sharing, right? And I'm not saying give everything away. I'm not going to go to Colonel Sanders and say, give me your 5, special spices, right? I'm not saying that. I'm just saying, give me the process that you took the client through, right? And if you can add, I had Ilana. She interviewed me. You guys had her previously on the show, and she talked about when she did a case study, she had a screenshot of the Google Ads account of the traffic and of the Facebook Ads account before the client hired her, and revealed these were the ad spend that they had allocated, for that month or 3 months. And then she had the after snapshot, which was here was the change in ad spend, and here were the results, the return on investment, these sort of things. And you could this is the personal trainer before and after. Like, you literally could see the difference and the change, right? So in the solution piece, that's what you're revealing. Here's the before and after, and here are the steps. Does that make sense?
Yeah, with screenshots. I guess if you put visuals, then you have even more anchoring, like in people's minds, not just text or video.
Yes, 100%. Right. So when you can do it. And for affiliate marketers, and what we do, this is where product walkthroughs and things like that make sense, because you can actually walk people through. Here's how I implemented the campaign. Here's how I used the product, whatever it may be. And I know you guys do that really, really well. So that's the solution. Then we move to the result. Okay. So now we're cycling back to what you put in the headline, because the headline was a short, punchy sentence, right? But now you're going to elaborate on that. And when I say elaborate, you're using the client's words, okay? So, because in the interview, they didn't, like Jesse didn't say to me, oh, what you did was reduce my bookkeeping time to 5 minutes per month. That's not what he said. He literally, we spoke for 20 minutes to me to get that out of him. And then, he said things like, what did he say? He said, it was kind of interesting when I talked to my accountant, I told her that I was using you guys. She was like, oh, you're using all the pro features, like your general, she was just going on about how good it was comparatively with you guys. Xero is being used correctly and properly. I'm just happy that my accountant's happy, right? And that's that's it. That's a result. It's not the only result, but that matters for some people. They don't want to piss off their accountants because
you want to highlight. It seems like the big result that they're after, the pain point that before they found you.
Yeah. So we're looking at the tangible. We saved X number of hours or increased percentage of revenue or whatever it may be. But we're also looking at what are the emotional benefits tied to all of that, right? There was another case study I did where it was all about transitioning this person from working full-time in their business to they hired a coach and they worked through a program. At the end of the program, they ended up in a position where they had a system in place, but that they were able to bring their VA in. The VA took over, and that freed up the business owner's time, right? And so when I interviewed the business owner, I said, I love that you were able to free up, 10 hours a week, whatever it was. What did you do at that time? And she said, and to be honest, I got the time back with my son, right? Like every Sunday I would be doing admin work, right? And so he'd be going, mom, and I just hated having to say to my kid, I'm working, right? And this is even more powerful with COVID, right? Because now we understand presence with our families is the best thing we can have.
Oh yeah, man. Yeah.
And that was the thing. I said, dude, when I went back to my client, the business owner, I said, dude, that's the thing. Like your clients want time with their family members because they're so in the business, stuck in the business. You help them unlock that, right? That's what you lead with because your potential clients are going to want to hear about that stuff, right? So that's results. We're clear on that one.
Yes. Yep. That's awesome, man. Okay. You got more, huh? Yeah.
Yeah. And then the last one is you got a result. The last one is your call to action.
Got it.
Like any piece of content, you want to have a call to action. Okay. So book a call with us, check out our free course, whatever it is that you have, lead magnet things. Here's a free training. Make sure there's a call to action on the bottom of that page.
Got it. Any best practices around call to action, or is it just pretty straightforward at that point? They should be sold. There's no more, I guess explaining the process of what happens after.
No, I think at that point you're going to overload the person. If you go into the post onboarding and let's get into all of that, I think let's not do that. Pretty straightforward. I link your call to action to, if you can remember this, they're considering the service or your product. So at this point in time, straight to the product or the service, right? This is, our next step.
Yeah. So how would we apply this to affiliate marketing? So, we going through this whole thing again, you've got the headline. That one is fairly self-explanatory for how you'd apply it to affiliate marketing. But then you go into profiling the client. Who is this about? What would be the equivalent sort of thing we would do if we're writing content to promote an affiliate offer, but we want to follow the same framework?
Yeah. So in that case, you'd have to I know you guys build relationships with the product creators. So, if I had, for example, if I was doing an affiliate program or a campaign for Ryan Dice and what he's doing with Ask Method, I'd be going, hey, Ryan, can I use some of your case studies, right? Can I either have access to the people, or I'm sure he's already done the case studies, so maybe I can leverage those and share their stories, right? Because this is the thing, people still want to see, even if it's an affiliate product, they still want to see other businesses like theirs having used the product, right? So you want to make sure that you going, in most cases, I know there's some other products I've done work with where they've literally just gone, here's 7 or 5 case studies that you can use in your email copy. You can use it on the landing pages or whatever it may be. And I like to go a step beyond that and go, can I bring that person onto a Facebook Live and have a chat with that person, right? Or something like that. So there's different ways you can do it, but you definitely want to access, now if you've already used the product for yourself, which I recommend you do, and I know you guys do, then and you've used it with your own clients, then that's easier because you can go to your clients and go, hey, remember how I told you to get onto ConvertKit and you bought the thing and and thanks for the monthly recurring payment, but how has it helped you, right? And then you basically go through the process with that particular person and you share that, right? So that's a way you can go about it.
So what if the case study was about like our product? Do you think it loses some power because it's us creating a case study about something we did to promote an offer? Or, do you kind of get what I'm saying here? Like if we're the ones that we're profiling with this case study, do you believe that it's not going to be as effective of a case study, or can I use myself as the company that we're profiling?
You can use yourself. I would always supplement, if you can, with some additional. The reason for that is when it's just you profiling yourself, it becomes a bit of a dicky thing. Like it depends on who's it's like I'm out there going, I'm the best, right? It's now there are situations, and I'll give you an example where I just did a walkthrough video. I'm about to do one for Repurpose, right? For Honey's product. And that's just me walking through my system on how I use the tool. And that's perfectly fine, right? But that's not me going, I'm fantastic or anything. That's just like, this is the tool, how I use it, right? Yeah. So when you do your walkthroughs of, Thrive Theme, Thrive Cart, and those sort of things, that's all perfect. No issues with that at all. And you can actually say, here's the results, having implemented this product, this is how we were able to generate X sales or whatever it is that came from that. That's perfectly fine, Matt. Like, I think that's cool. Just if you can get additional, where you've actually also given the product to some other clients and they've done it, right? Now it's just like you're stacking it up, right? You're stacking the value where people go, oh, it's not only that you guys done it for yourself, because people can question that. They can go, yeah, but that's you selling it, that's you, right?
Well, an easy way to just do a Facebook group where the users are all at. Like we have a Thrive Cart group. There's a Convert Box group. There's all these. Just put a post in there and be like, "Hey, what best thing have you?" Just
that's
ask
it.
them. How do you actually? What would you recommend as a prompt in that scenario? Because I feel like you can get a lot of case studies in that way.
Yeah, like I've seen that done in groups where they just the group owner just goes, we're going to do an article or a video or something about this particular product. Would love to hear from you guys. What's been the biggest advantage or the best feature? And they just go boom, they just slam it, right? And then you just pull and you just go to each one of those people and just make sure you get the okay for them to share it publicly.
Right.
And once you got that, you've got gold.
Yeah, I would probably not even say I'm going to make content where I'm like, hey, I just want to know about this stuff. Make it almost like there's no weird thing. And then later ask for the permission. Like, okay, hey, actually, I want to highlight you a little bit further here.
That's exactly how I do it. Yeah. We're going to say, Matt?
Cool.
So, there's one last rabbit hole I want to go down before we start to wrap up. And that's, how do we get eyeballs on these case studies?
Beautiful question. Okay, so I've got this obviously I've shared this article with you guys, but I've got 15 ways to share business case studies to people who most likely would buy. I'm going to add a few more to that. Since I've been doing these interviews, I've just had more ideas come up now. But let's go through. I'll give you the first 5, and then people can go check out the resource later. Number 1 is you definitely want to share the case study on social media, and I'll tell you why this is powerful, and I'll give you a case study of a case study. Go on, meta on you. So essentially, that one we did with Bento for Bean Ninjas, we did so I took the headline, right? I put that into a tweet, right? So client success, here's how we reduce companies, blah, blah, by 5 minutes per month. Read more, and that links off to the page that sits on the website, right? We tagged the client in that tweet, okay? So he receives the notification on his side, right? And he immediately retweets it, okay? Within 5 minutes, literally 5 minutes of him retweeting, someone on his Twitter feed comments and says, hey man, I need that too. I'm going to contact this company. And so a call was booked, and then within 3 days, that person became a client, right? Because when it's the right mix of message, right, to result-driven message, to obviously that person checked out the case study before they booked the call, right? And they read through it, they saw how it all worked out, and they're seeing their buddy, getting the result, and they're like, I want that too, right? So that's a good way to use social media. Now, someone else who does it really well is Brian Harris. I think you guys know who he is.
Oh, Video Fruit.
Yeah, Video Fruit, now Growth Labs. So he literally has a tweet, and he does it once every week or so, where he basically has number of clients that had wins last week, total revenue impact, then he's got 4 bullet points of each client with specific outcomes. I'll read it. I'm looking at it so I can read it to you. He's got one where it says 104 wins last week, total revenue was $82,000. Bullet point 1, Dawn landed a new 15K client. Bullet point 2, Shane closed 2 clients for 20K. put 3. Like he just lists 4 clients and what their results were, and then puts a link and it says see all 104 wins. Click here, and you click it, and it sends you to his results page, client success page, right? Which is tip number 2, which is you got to have a client success page on your website somewhere, right? And this is where you load it up with all your case studies, all right? And then the way you break that down, you want to break it down is into verticals or industries that you support. So if you support e-commerce and SaaS and coaches and consultants, then call that out, right? And have case studies listed under each heading, right? One business that does this really well is Xero, which is the bookkeeping software.
Yep.
Or accounting software. Yeah, with an X, thank you. So they have a page on their menu which is Meet Our Customers, and if you click through that, it's all video, like they're beautiful, like images and videos and things, and it's broken down by industry. So that's a good example if someone wants to look at that.
Very cool. Okay,
right, that's number 2. Number 3 is proposals, right? So I'm usually talking to B2B, so use your case studies in your proposal templates. So if you are an accounting firm, whatever, dentist, I don't think dentists send proposals, but if you are sending proposals out, you want to embed within your proposals, 1 or 2 case studies that are relevant to the client that you're sending the proposal to, right? And this is really good. Again, this is about conversion. So now we're using this content in a sales conversation. Now we're at the point where we've already had the discovery call, we've already gone through, you need this, and they've gone, yep, I need it and I want it. Here's a proposal, and here's, just in case you were evaluating other options, here is another case study, just to show what we've been able to achieve, and that works really well. So that's number 3. Number 4, everyone can do this right now. Put a case study into your email signature.
Right? Smart.
Right, so go into case study, same headline that we use for the tweet, same headline that we use for the case study itself. Put that in the email signature. By the way, we helped XYZ company to achieve X. Click here to read more about it. Boom, right? Straight to your customer success page.
I like that a lot.
That's a good one.
And then number 5, for a lot of us who are doing presentations and going out there and doing talks and webinars and summits, embed your case studies in your presentation decks. Right, so make sure, this is where I see a lot of small business owners mess it up. They do so much effort to get onto podcasts, they get onto stages and they present, and they do like a whole ton of 30 minutes of teaching someone a concept or how to, but they and for some industries like accounting, they have no pitch events, so you can't end your talk and start pitching a service, right? But the way you can sort of sneakily, if you want ninja trick, right, you can actually embed your case studies, so you share stories of clients you've worked with and the results you produced, right? And what typically happens is someone will come up to you and go, hey Joe, that case study you mentioned, I want to know more about that, right? And that opens the door into the sales conversation. Okay, and
Absolutely.
That's worked well for me, and it's worked well for others that I've taught this to as well. So there are 5, and then there's another 10 more you can look at on the website.
And we'll link that in the show notes because I think it's a very long URL. Also, how can people get the? I think it's free. And correct me if I'm wrong, but to get the kind of like the case study really deep dive PDF, and you have a bunch of email templates as well.
Yes, so I put it all onto a nice little page, like the guide, the blog post I just talked about. Just go to simplecreativemarketing.com/hustle. If you go there, it's all there for you guys, and just go grab it.
You made our life and everyone listening so much easier. Thank you. I wrote down hustles for some reason. No, because I remember downloading that stuff, the case study where it walks through probably even more in depth than what you can do here, or at least it follows along.
Yes.
And then you have templates, email templates, like a whole What are the templates around, actually? I didn't really dive in those as much.
Good question. So one of the, a common question I get is, how do I get my client to agree to doing the case study?
That's it. Yeah.
Right. And so we use a template to basically, there's a template in there, which is the one that we use for our clients, and they send it out to their clients. And it basically says the rule number one of anything around this is, what's in it for them, right? So if you're going to ask someone to be profiled on your website and in your marketing, okay, like, unless they really love you and they're like, sure, I'm happy to help you, right? In most cases, you're going to have to convince them some way, right? And there's got to be a benefit for them. So, one benefit that really works really well is we're going to profile you. You get your 5 minutes of fame in front of our audience, right? We know you serve a similar type of audience, or one segment within our audience is the same type of business that you go after, right? We're going to put you in front of them, okay? And so that's one way. Another way is, for a lot of agencies that, I've got a client I'm working with now who supports agencies, and what she said to me was, well, some agencies don't want to be on a customer success story page with 10 other agencies, because now they're all competing. And I'm going, I get that. So what would be a benefit to the agency? And she said, well, maybe, I don't know, they like to get a backlink because that's going to help their SEO. Boom. Okay. So understand what's the benefit for the person you're asking, right? And put that in there. So one of the templates goes through that. The other templates are all around. So there's a follow up on that. There's also, if you're working with writers and things like that, templates to give to the writers so they can do the writing for you. So there's other pieces of that in there.
Yeah, no, I saw that and I was like, oh, wow. You just took the thinking out of a lot of this stuff too.
Yeah, I'm going to have to go grab all this stuff.
We're going to use this. Yeah. And for affiliate, because that's really what we're doing. We're reworking a lot of stuff in the business where other folks can kind of really take and run what we used to be caught up in a lot. And we're just heads down into content. So I know Matt specifically is going to write a lot more of our style, but probably even weave in the case study thing even further.
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
I dig it. Cool. Well, we're going to link everything up. I know there's a long simplecreativemarketing.com/hustle for that. Anf, this is awesome, dude. Thank you.
Thank you so much, guys. Love rocking with you today. And we'll just continue doing what we do. And I love your group. Everyone should join that group if you're not already in there.
That's flowchartgroup.com for anybody listening.
We'll speed up the outro. That's where you get the notes for all this stuff from AMP too, because we took the notes for you. Flowchartgroup.com. Thank you, brother. Appreciate you.
Awesome, man. This has been great. Thanks so much.
Thanks, guys.